I can't believe it, but it's already been over a year since I started my TCG business. In this video, we're gonna be talking about the biggest lessons that I've learned through my experience so far. We're gonna talk a little bit about the numbers as well to kind of give you an idea for where I started to where I am now and my future plans. So that's how this video is gonna be broken out. My name is Matt, I'm with RAR TCG. I would really appreciate it if you consider liking and subscribing to the channel, and also let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section, especially if you are currently starting and in the middle of your TCG business. How is it going for you? And if you haven't quite started yet, let me know what's holding you back. Is there a specific part about starting the business that is, maybe more stressful than something else? Maybe you're anxious towards a specific part of it. Because if that's the case, maybe I can create some content or videos talking about my perspective and maybe give you a little push to get started. Well, as I said, we're going to be talking about my biggest kind of lessons that I've learned over the past year of selling, slinging cardboard. It's actually been absolutely phenomenal. There's been some ups, there's been some downs, there's been some lefts and some rights, and I just can't wait to chat with you guys about it. I've mentioned this before, but I started my business with about $1,000 about a year ago, right at the end of December, getting my TCG player shop up and running, and then into January as I really got started selling on TCG Player. My business primarily focused around starting with bulk. As I said, I had a very small amount of capital to get started. I also did not have a very robust collection, and so just keep that in mind whenever you're looking at other businesses and content. It really, the amount of sales and revenue you have is proportionate to the amount of cash flow and capital you have, / the amount of collection you're willing to move away from. So if you've been collecting in the space for 5-10 years, chances are you have some pretty big, banger items in your collection that you can move off of and go from $0 to $5,000, $10,000 pretty quickly as you got started selling, liquidating some of your collection to build cash flow. For me, I did not have a collection worth even more than $1,000 I got started with, but I personally did not sell pieces of my collection to get started. I had just a handful of dollars. I had $1,000, which is a considerable amount of money. And I used that to buy something like a thermal printer. I used it to buy my first couple of bulk lots, but I had not and have not really been in the position where I want to move off of a lot of my collection. That's not been something that I've prioritized or even thought about doing, but it is something that I want you to consider. Because if you are sitting here saying, I have a dream of starting a TCG business, but I have no money, cash flow, capital to get started. But I want you guys to look at your collection. Are you sitting on $5,000, $3,000 worth of items? What if you just sold off the duplicate items that you had? What if you just looked at some of the singles that you no longer like as much as you did before? There's a lot of different options for how you can accumulate your first, injection of cash to get everything started. So I just want to caveat with that, because everyone on the internet, you'll hear people kind of throw out these sales numbers, and I'm about to throw out mine, but I want you to be able to contextualize that, okay? Because a sales number can look really, really cool, but if someone's starting with 6 figures of cash flow and they're doing 6 figures of sales proportionate to where their cash flow is, maybe they are limited on time, maybe they're just really selective with the collections that they buy, maybe they're running it totally as a side hustle. So everything is proportionate to where the person is. So I started with $1,000, bought my bulk collection. Down here underneath these Funko Pops is my thermal printer that I bought. I actually just bought a new thermal printer because the one I bought before that only worked about, I would say it worked about 50% of the time, and so I was so happy to throw that thing away. I actually dunked it into the trash can on one of my live streams, and it bounced up. I was kind of embarrassed. I didn't know it was going to do that. But yeah, so that's kind of where my initial money went. So how are things going, Well, I did about $55,000 in sales in 2025, which is super exciting. It's also super nerve-wracking for me because now I have to figure out how to navigate taxes, which I've been doing research and I've been trying to learn here and there, and I've been paying towards my state sales tax and everything every quarter. So I've understood kind of the next steps that I need to take, but the actual filing of the taxes is something that's going to be new to me. And so I'm really excited to see how that goes, but also when you're dealing with something like taxes that are super duper important, it's important that you get some insight, maybe some guidance from somebody on that. But also for me, I just don't want to mess that up because that's a very official thing, you know what I mean? So I've been really trying to just really focus on how do I do that effectively? How do I do that the correct way? And also keeping in mind that, like, hey, I have a family, my wife and I, we work full time, we pay towards our taxes and everything through our jobs. So a lot of that stuff is going to be very fun to figure out. There's also some areas of taxes, like tax advantage kind of items, like the amount of space I use in my home to run my business, the internet that I use, the miles that I drive to and from the post office or to and from buying collections. I could optimize my taxes so much more, and that's one of my goals in 2026. I don't want to get too far ahead, but while we're talking about taxes, I wanted to mention that that is one of my goals, is to further optimize what I'm doing, to get better at my accounting, how I'm tracking things. Because right now I do cash-based accounting. It's mostly, I have a separate bank account for my business. I do cash-based accounting. And so therefore connecting the dots to what's happening with my bank account ins and outs is a little bit more simple that way. But I think I can further optimize it just to be a little bit better as I continue to scale. Because as you scale your business, things like that only become, they become more complex. It's harder to keep track of. So making sure early on that you are, putting things in place to have a good foundation for what your processes are is super duper important. So for some of you listening, hearing that I did 5 figures in sales, right? $55,000. For some of you, you may be looking at that and be like, oh, that's the dream. That sounds amazing. But for me, I'm looking at that and understanding what I mentioned earlier about cash flow, revenue, sales. I also, there's 2 parts of me, right? There's the part of me that's extremely proud of what I did, of what I've built so far, going from $1,000 to then scaling my business up to doing over, $50,000 in sales. That is an exciting accomplishment that I'm super duper proud of. But there's another side of me now where I'm standing in my business that's continuing to grow, that's doing extremely well, that I'm saying, hey, I am severely limited by the amount of capital and cash flow that I have on hand each month. And so right now I'm in a place where I'm proud of myself, but I'm also unsatisfied with how things are going. Because now that I have sales channels built in, now that I've built up my website, now that I have a growing email list, I have a rip and ship, I have, the sales on TCG Player, can expand that to eBay. There's so many options and pathways to being able to sell and make money that I can see that, hey, the $5,000 to $6,000 I spend every month, buying and selling products, that's exciting, but there's so much more I could do if I had $10,000 each month, if I had $15,000. And for some of you watching this that, if you stumbled across this video and you're an established business or you have a business outside of Pokemon, you're hearing that I spend $5,000 each month and you're being like, that is like nothing, right? And so that's true. That is so true. And my voice crack confirms it, Guys, I'm proud of what I've done, but I am still an extremely small fry in the grand picture of things. I'm extremely proud of how things are looking, how things are projected to grow this year. Things are moving and working really well. But to be 100% honest, what I'm doing is pretty small in terms of the grand scope of things, but that's okay because I have a vision, I have a goal set in mind for where I want to go, where I want to be this year that we're going to talk about. And if I just continue to grind, because what I'm doing is working, right? And so what I'm doing, I need to grow with what I know. So I have my stable, just, the foundational pieces laid for what I'm doing to grow cash flow, grow capital, revenue, all of that. I just have to continue to do that and then look for these opportunities that only pop up once or twice, These kind of, I think in the business world, they sometimes call that like a moonshot opportunity. Well, sometimes those things come around, but if I don't have capital or cash on hand because I've deployed it with my foundational pieces, I may not be able to fully capitalize on those opportunities when they happen. And so that's kind of where I'm at. I'm in this weird in-between time where I'm getting to a place where maybe revenue is growing and I can have some additional cash flow in the bank as I'm also deploying things with the different efforts that I have. But it's also to a point where my cash flow that I constantly have in the bank is enough to cover all of my expenditures and all of that, have some extra just in case something, an emergency happens and needs to be addressed. All of that's taken care of. But if I had a once in a lifetime opportunity pop in for like a $5,000 collection at 60%, I wouldn't be able to do that. You know what I mean? And so that eats away at the back of my mind because I need to keep growing. It's kind of that fire behind me that's saying, hey, I need to get to a point where I can buy a 5,000 collection. But guess what? Here's what's going to happen. When I get to a point where I can make those $5,000 purchases, then I'm going to be thinking, but somebody had a $10,000 purchase. And so like the climb, the grind, it's always there. It's always churning away in the back of your mind. And I'm sure that's how it is for all businesses of all sizes. And maybe that never ends. Maybe even if I was 100x what I'm doing right now in the $50 million range or whatever. Is that even, I can't do math, guys. Don't worry about me. If I was doing multiple millions of dollars, would I still feel this way? And I think that I probably would, okay? As like an entrepreneur, person that's always forward mindset, I would probably always be thinking of like, but what if X happened? Because I've seen it already that those opportunities do come, and if you're not ready to capitalize, you will miss them because the next person they go to will have the capital to do it. But it's also okay to miss out if you know and have a goal and you're moving forward towards that. So that's kind of where those things are at. Kind of a snapshot of how things went. Here's a little bit more in-depth breakdown. I am not a huge spreadsheet guy. Sometimes you will jump into a video of mine. You'll see me have a spreadsheet up. I'll be talking about things in depth, but I'm not that guy. So you have to understand that I'm going to share some broad numbers. I'm going to give you a full picture of what's happening, but you're not going to see spreadsheets and data and everything like that. There are some amazing YouTubers out there that do that and provide that type of insight. So I just want to caveat with that. So about half of my sales were on TCG Player. TCG Player, actually, I made more. So I did about 28,000 through there. And then the rest was through, I did 55, yeah. So I did the rest through my website sales, primarily through the Rip and Ship with some sealed sales on my website, also some collection sales and things like that as well. Just through little one-off communications and being able to offload collections that way. I recently talked about the kind of what I would consider a large Godzilla collection that I sold through my website, through a connection that I made on social media and through my email. So that was a really cool opportunity for me to learn how to ship something overseas all the way to Australia, have a really good opportunity to connect and sell that type of thing to somebody else overseas. So that was really cool and exciting. It was a fun opportunity. But let's go ahead and talk more about it. So that was TCG Player and the website. I talked a little bit about running the Rip and Ship, selling sealed there. Having your own website is huge, guys. I know Pokey Annie talks a lot about it, but I cannot undersell the value of your own website, of owning your own email list that you can promote and grow that way. Do not miss out on those opportunities if your business is in a place where you can scale to having your own website. Now, you may be watching this and you're like, I have no interest in starting my own website. I'm happy with doing my TCG Player sales. I'm happy doing X, Y, and Z. And if that's you, that's perfectly fine. You need to have your own goals, which are going to be separate than mine. And maybe live streaming is not on that for you, maybe for a personal reason, or just because you do not have the bandwidth to do it right now. That's perfectly fine. And that goes back to my very first point of try not to compare yourself to other businesses or anything like that, because it's not fair to you, because like you comparing and trying to compete against somebody else, like nobody else sees that or even really cares about that mindset. It's not that we're necessarily trying to beat each other. It's that I have my own goals and vision for my business, and I need to put the pieces in place where I can put that into motion. You and your business, you can be highly successful, but you also need to define what your goal and where your vision is for your business, okay? So that's what the overall look there. I want to talk a little bit about TCG Player as well. I started with just Pokemon bulk with a couple small collections that I'd buy here and there with like small to mid-range cards that I would sell from time to time, but mostly bulk, like 10, 15, 30-cent cards, selling that over and over and over again. And so where I am now is, again, about half of my revenue. It's going really well on the streams, is pushed through there. So I deploy a lot of capital every single day, or not every single day, but every single week and month to make sure that my live stream is stocked. And I can honestly say with the market kind of cooling off a little bit and with us having more access to English packs, that's been awesome. Because for the first, like, almost all of 2025, I had barely any English packs available and all of my inventory was Japanese. Well, that's starting to flip-flop a little bit. I'm able to access more English packs and sealed products with a bit better prices, percentages. I also have more cash flow, so I can make bigger purchases and people are more willing to give a slight discount for a bulk purchase. So again, cash flow revenue makes things like, it opens doors for you in ways that you maybe wouldn't realize at first. So keep that in mind, please. On TCG Player, started with the bulk, but I also quickly, through watching YouTube videos and stuff like that, I knew that I wanted to start selling Magic. Magic is actually the #1 selling TCG on the entire platform of TCG Player, and that's primarily because Magic is a player's game. People are building commander decks, they're building their standard decks, their pauper decks, all of that. Like they want to buy the cards so they can put them in their decks, they can play with them at their, around their kitchen table, at their LGS, at regionals and beyond. It's really exciting. Magic has some really strong valued cards that you wouldn't see that in something like Pokemon. For us, a high value bulk card that's absolutely crushing it is like Night Stretcher at $3 back in the day. Night Stretchers is now like a 25-cent card, okay? That's just what happens. But for Magic, things kind of retain their value a lot better because the sheer number of players that are out there. I don't know what you can make an argument for sure that Pokemon is larger, that the Pokemon TCG is larger, but it's larger with more investor, collector types and less so with the players, whereas Magic is heavy on the players. And of course there are people that collect and everything with Magic as well, but it's just not as large of a scene as something like Pokemon. So keep that in mind. I highly recommend TCG businesses to branch outside of one TCG. There are highly successful people that focus in on one TCG, and if you want that to be you, you can go for it. But I highly recommend experimenting and at least trying other TCGs out, because for me, I've kind of fallen in love with Magic as a reseller, as a player on Magic Arena online. It's a lot of fun, and I've really enjoyed learning the game. That's also given me confidence to branch out in other TCGs like Gundam, Dragon Ball Z, One Piece, Union Arena. There's another, Riftbound as well. And I've found success in those areas. Also Godzilla, I just mentioned Godzilla. Godzilla sells really well. I've been selling a lot of the set 2 actually is what I've been selling a lot of. So guys, that's kind of the overarching kind of where I was, where I am today is I'm just scaling all of those different efforts more and more and more. So for example, Lorwyn just came out and I deployed more capital than I ever had before into Lorwyn, okay? I spent a lot of money getting product in, breaking that down for singles and selling that. That was extremely successful. I'm actually still sitting on, this is like the first time it's ever been possible, but I'm actually still sitting on several commander decks, entire sets. I've actually already made my money back. I'm in the positive and I have a couple commander deck sets just kind of stored away. Because what happens with Magic is you have this like rush to the bottom as a set releases. There is an opportunity to make some money there if you know what you're doing. You can definitely make some profit, but then, it kind of bottoms out. Prices get really, really low as there's more product on the market. And then over time, as that product is bought, people put it in their decks, those prices start to go up over time, and it begins to create these other windows, additional windows where you can make additional margin if you're in a place where you can maybe set some product aside and sell that later on. So that's kind of, this is my first experience with that. Could I open those commander decks, make even more profit? Yes, but I'm in a really good place where I've already made the percentage of profit that I was looking to do. And so that's just like gravy, right? That's sugar on top right there, and that's super exciting. So let's go ahead and transition the last of this video towards like my future plans and where I'm going. Well, my underarching plan right here, and there's one thing that I'll mention at the end, there's another revenue driver right now, a separate arm of my business, so to speak, that is generating cash flow and revenue that I want to talk about, but I'll save that for the end. So my future plans in 2026, I really like to double what I was doing, really hit that 100K, break 100K. And so if I can sell and scale my business to a place where I break $100,000 in sales this year, that would be such a huge accomplishment for me, and that's winning. Okay, anything above that is crazy. I also want to note that like we're in a super hot market, and this is another thing about cash flow. This video is about my business journey, but it's also about cash flow and revenue, because I think those are nuanced conversations and topics about business that we don't talk a lot about. I talked about just kind of how stressful it is not being able to deploy the amounts of cash flow that I'd like, but also realizing that right now is a huge opportunity to start some sort of Pokemon TCG business. And if you have a lot of revenue and cash flow and you have, connections to get product, you can definitely be successful by accumulating product with a lot of revenue. If you have your sales outlets and channels in place, you can turn that super quick for a super fast profit. This will not always be the case. There will eventually be a turn in the market where sell-through rate is a little bit lower than it is now, or a lot lower. And so you have to insulate and prepare for those times so that you can be successful, oh my gosh, I can't talk, in a bear market and a bull market. But right now is a huge opportunity. And so therefore, because I can acknowledge how big the opportunity is right now, it also eats away at me a little bit, not being able to do more. So it's a good problem to have, because I'm doing everything that I can. It's successful, it's growing, but I want to do more, right? I always want to do more. So let's go ahead and this out. $100,000 in sales would be absolutely huge. I would love to hit it like. At the beginning of the year, I was like, if I can just do 1,000 subscribers each year on YouTube, I'd be super happy. We're actually almost to 1,900 subs here on YouTube. So let's throw a number up of 3,000 subs by the end of 2026. I would be super Gucci happy with that. If it's more than that, let's go. But guys, my growth plan on YouTube is slow and steady, okay? I'm not looking to be the next viral outbreak, anything like that. I've scaled down my short content. I need to actually work on that, because I have a pretty good following on Instagram and TikTok as well. I like to continue to foster and grow those communities, but also knowing that short content can inflate your subscriber accounts here on YouTube. So being able to navigate that well is something that I'm really looking to do. Everything's growing right now, which is absolutely amazing. I think that the $100,000 in sales is definitely reachable, doable, and achievable. So that's what we're gunning towards in the short term. So that's a big picture, like zooming in super short and like on topic is I need to list more. I need to list more. I need to work on time management when it comes to fulfilling orders, stuff like that. There's like small optimizations that I can make. But honestly, when it comes to listing, I typically will focus on higher return items first. And then as I'm doing that, as I'm living my life, going to work, all that stuff, some of these like lower opportunities, like whether that's bulk or whether that's like EXs, stuff like that, somewhere between the $1 to $5 range, a lot of times those will just sit and they will collect a little bit of dust here and there as I'm focusing on other aspects. So for me, if I can get my time management down a little bit better, I'll have a little bit more free time and room to list more of those type of cards, which will just add to that bottom line. Again, I'm already profitable. Things are already going extremely well. So if I can find time to also focus on those, $1 to $5 cards, getting those up and listed effectively and efficiently, then that's only going to help grow things over time. The very last thing I said I was going to mention is YouTube. I got monetized on YouTube back in November, and I've been consistently making about $250 to $300 each month since then. I know it's only been 3 months, but that's kind of the average that things are like falling into. It's been absolutely phenomenal. And again, like that is revenue, that is cash flow that's going back into the business. And I'm such a small operation right now, I'm not paying myself. Every single cent that I make of revenue goes back into the business. And that's intentionally, okay? That's intentional, that's planned that way. I am really focused on growing the business bottom line as fast and efficiently as possible without taking on leverage, without making extreme gambles that could bankrupt me, that kind of stuff. So YouTube's absolutely phenomenal. I really highly recommend that you get out there, post videos. Even if you don't feel very confident, do it. Just be yourself, put your thoughts out there, and it's okay if you grow slowly. It's okay if you don't get monetized for the first year, for the first 2 years. It's okay. What matters is that you're out there grinding, you're out there putting out videos consistently, whether that's daily, weekly, monthly, it doesn't really matter. Just be sure to try it at the very least. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know down in the comments, was this encouraging? Was this helpful to hear some of the kind of behind the scenes look at my business? I know this is more of just a ranty video, but hey, that's what I do, okay? Low effort, like high knowledge, I'm trying to add value, but low effort when it comes to editing, because I ain't got time to edit, guys. I ain't got time for that. So thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you guys for the next one. Peace.